Welcome into the Fade. I am Clay Travis. He is Todd Furman. Furman, I hate to brag or draw attention to myself, but I did start off the week by telling everybody to take Georgia and the under. Both of those hit. And I went ahead and got Omicron and beat it. And now here I am sitting here Friday, still quarantined inside of the Outkick mansion, gearing up to watch and make hopefully a lot of money on the NFL wildcard weekend. How much of a hero am I?
You're not a hero to anybody. I'm sure even your three boys under the ages of 15 wouldn't see their old man as a hero, but you are the master of your own domain. There's a reason, quarantine or not, that your wife and the boys have relegated you to sitting in your upstairs office so they can have the safe space down throughout the rest of the house. And the rest of the world only has to deal with you from a digital standpoint through interactive capabilities instead of face-to-face altercations.
Well, television also, let's file in, and also radio. There's lots of different mediums where people have to deal with me, but face-to-face.
As long as it's not in person. As long as it's not in person, everybody wins the way I see it.
Most lovable man in media, that is me. Also, by the way, Furman, 59% winners so far on the Outkick six-pack this season. We have been
pretty good,
absolutely on fire as it comes to these games. So we'll see if we can keep things rolling. 6-1 on the picks last weekend. Roll into the wild card. Furman, let's dive right into it. Tomorrow, a little bit about this time, we'll have the first game kicking off. Raiders on the road against the Bengals. I like the Raiders here, and I like the over. Now, let me kind of give you my rationale. You tell me whether you think it's crazy or if it makes sense. Raiders, your hometown of Vegas now, they were all over. I mean, when you look at the pressure that they were putting on Justin Herbert, I think that given the Bengals have allowed an awful lot of hits and an awful lot of sacks, basically the most in the NFL, I believe, this year for Joe Burrow, I think that the Raiders' defensive line matches up well with the Bengals' offensive line. I think the Raiders, as the underdog, are a live read here to potentially go on the road and get the win outright. I also think that the way that they are going to pressure and the way that Joe Burrow throws the ball up to Jamar Chase as often as he does is going to lead to some big plays. I like the way that Derek Carr is playing. I like the offensive weapons that the Raiders have, which seem to be in decent health. I like the Raiders plus the points and the over in this one to start off Super Wildcard Weekend. What say you?
I can see exactly where you're coming from, making a case for the underdog. There is no doubt about it. When you look at where this number opened on the FanDuel Sportsbook app, it was 6.5 at the top of the market, immediately took some money from professional bettors, and that's why we're hovering in that 5.5 range. To your point, when you look at this Raiders team, they've kind of been in playoff mode over the last month of the season, winners of 4 straight. In 3 of those 4 games, they were all decided on game-winning field goals coming off the foot of Daniel Carlson, and you look at their 12-point differential through this 4-game winning streak to close out the season. That's actually the smallest margin of victory over a 4-game winning streak to close it out in NFL history. You have to go back to 1926 to find the next closest, which was the Kansas City Cowboys at plus 16. So what they've done has defied the odds. When you mention the Raiders and the strength of this defense, there is no doubt about it that it's Max Crosby generating pressure off the edge. I mean, he has far and away been the most disruptive force in the entire NFL so far this season when it comes to quarterback hits and being able to do so. He had a 61% pass rush win rate the first time around against the Bengals. It wasn't good enough for the Raiders to get the win, but that game was a lot closer than the final score of 32-13 would lead you to believe. When you look at Vegas on the other side, offensively, they should be able to have some success. I mean, Hunter Renfrow is going to create problems for a Cincinnati secondary that's really struggled to contain slot receivers. I do wonder how effective Josh Jacobs will be because I think the Bengals can make Derek Carr and company one-dimensional. I agree with the case you're making for the underdog, but I actually lean under the total in this game. And when you talk about Jamar Chase, the matchup between him and Casey Hayward, I believe, will be fascinating to watch. Burrow only threw the ball for 150 yards the first time around. I think he'll be better in this spot. But so much of the Bengals' success has been Joe Mixon as well. And I think Mixon becomes the X factor here. So I can see the Raiders as a live underdog, but I like the game under the total, so slight disagreement with you there.
All right, so by the way, you can bet on any of these games, and you should take the Chiefs. If you are a new user, $5 bet returns you $150. That's a 30-1 payout on any team to win outright. I said to take the Chiefs, and we'll get to them in a moment, because they are the biggest favorite, and that is the best value you're getting. 30-1 payout, $5 gets you back $150. FanDuel.com/Clay. New York gamblers, you can now jump in. FanDuel.com/Clay. All right, the Saturday night game, Furman. Patriots at Bills. Now, I'm just curious, by the way, Furman, how many of the minutes of these 6 NFL games will you watch live?
My goal is to watch every single minute of every game played, but it does come with a little bit of a caveat because I almost had a wrench thrown in my schedule in May. One of my best friends has a 6-week-old baby whose baptism just happens to be scheduled for Sunday at 1:30 Pacific. That coincides with the kickoff between the Cowboys and 49ers. So there is a chance that I may miss the first half of that football game, but if that situation resolves itself and I'm able to remove myself from that situation, I will watch every single minute. So that's 240 for those math wizards scoring at home of Wild Card Weekend football being played.
My goal is to watch every minute, by the way. And now that I'm quarantined at the house, that actually becomes easier. Like, I can argue that that's all I have to do. So this is my blood bank. This is my blood bank guarantee. You see me right there. I'm tapping the vein. I'm tapping the vein for everybody. I love the Bills against the Patriots. It's going to be frigid in Orchard Park. I don't know why they make them go up there and sit in the dark at night to watch this game, as if it's not cold enough during the daylight. But I love the Bills to cover the 4 against the Patriots. I know they played in that game you loved because of the weather, Furman, when it was an unmitigated
It's a thing
disaster.
of beauty, Clay. When you get 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts and you get a team that throws the ball 3 times, that is my Mona Lisa when it comes to weather.
For those of you out there who don't know, I have made fun of Furman for years for his obsession with looking at weather for games. And this was, as he just said, his Mona Lisa, because the weather completely took over. You could barely throw. I mean, the Patriots only threw the ball 3 times. The under came crashing down. It's one of the great weather opportunity plays of all time. So, Furman, I love the Bills here. I think the fact that they got called out the first time they lost to the Patriots by the media, they said it was embarrassing. I think that fired up this defense. I love the way Josh Allen is playing. I think they still want to send a message to the Patriots based on the history of losses. They went on the road and dominated in Foxborough. We all know Belichick is a wizard, but I think the problem he's got is Sean McDermott's got a lot better bag of tricks to play with here, and I believe the Bills win 24-13. I think they win by double digits. I'm all in. Blood bank guarantee on the Bills.
Again, I'm not going to argue with your pick on the side. I think it's Bills or pass in this spot. And when you look at the way this line has moved, I mean, we saw the Bills open as a 4.5-point favorite. Initially, there was some support for the underdog that took it down to 4. And on Friday morning, you saw the Bills start to take a wave, pushing it out to pretty much 4.5 and even 5 in some places. The difference of opinion I have here is, again, on the total. I know you said 24-13. I'm going to go over this number at 43.5. I think when you look at these two offenses, the Bills are going to force New England out of its comfort zone because Josh Allen is going to throw the football early and often. The Bills, to your point, were embarrassed the last time they played in Orchard Park, New York. And unlike last year where the Bills had to play playoff games in front of essentially empty stadiums, this is going to be a crowd foaming at the mouth, tailgating, breaking tables since 6 a.m. on Saturday that are out of their minds, creating an electric atmosphere. I think the Bills come out, play with tempo. They throw the ball against this New England secondary that's a little bit vulnerable. And as a result, New England's not going to be able to stay committed to the ground game. So I actually like the game over the total, and it's probably one of my favorite looks of Wild Card Weekend. For the reason you talked about the weather, everyone will mention the cold, but the reality of this game, you don't have wintry mix, you don't have wind, and I think the Bills, because of their game script, are going to force New England to be more aggressive. Teams won't be able to kick long field goals, given cold footballs. I like this game over, and it wouldn't shock me whatsoever if the Bills find a way to get into the 30s.
All right, first game on Sunday, Eagles at Bucks. Eagles are an 8.5-point underdog. I'm going to go a little bit probably counter to the expectation because you could tell me better whether this is true or not, Furman. My bet is most people are coming in big on the Bucks here based on Brady and how well they played in the postseason last year. I think 8.5 is just too steep. I like what I've seen out of this Eagles team down the stretch. The Bucks have not been healthy on the offensive side. They've been wobbly down the stretch. Not saying they're going to lose at home to the Eagles, because I don't think they will. But I just think there's too much value on Eagles plus 8.5. You agreeing or disagreeing with that pick?
You know what? I can't argue with you. Making a case for the underdog in a game where this total opened 49.5. We're now down to 45.5, and we're going to come back to weather, because the worst football weather of the entire weekend, go figure, is going to be in this football game when you look at some of the forecasts. 20 to 25 mile an hour gusts expected. Now, temperatures will be fine at 65, but there could be sideways rain playing a massive role in this spot. And as the total comes down, it makes the points with the underdog, especially an underdog that's going to commit to the ground game, all that much more valuable. And when you look at Philadelphia, I know their resume leaves a lot to be desired. They haven't beaten a single team that's in the postseason this year, but they've completely changed philosophies after that Thursday Night Football loss against Tampa. They got back to running the football. Everything runs through Jalen Hurts. Miles Sanders will return from injury. We'll see how effective he is. But this is the run-heaviest offense in the NFL, matched up against a team that throws the ball more than any team in the league, in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So in these kind of elements, I think it plays into Philadelphia's hands. I think they can be competitive in this one if they use some tempo early. You're talking about a Bucs team that's down a couple of key cogs offensively. We're not quite sure if they'll have their full complement of difference makers on the defensive side. So I definitely get where you're coming from. For me, I'll probably be on the sidelines because I did miss the boat on this total. There's no way I'm going under a number that's already moved 4 points. So I'll give you a prop here instead. I'll go under 289.5 for Tom Brady passing yards. I think the weather can slow down this passing game. And if Leonard Fournette is, touch and go, it's going to make them a lot more one-dimensional, which will allow Philadelphia to scheme differently. So I think Brady has some struggles getting to 300 yards.
The closest game, according to odds makers, 49ers on the road at the Cowboys. I'm on the 49ers here. I'm a little bit nervous because Jimmy G has been, let's just say, erratic to be charitable. But I feel like the 49ers are playing with house money. I like Kyle Shanahan's ability to scheme things up. The Cowboys have not exactly been incredible performers in the postseason historically. I think the pressure is squarely on the star. And so I am going 49ers plus the points on the road in Dallas. How do you break this one down, Furman?
Yep, I'm with you again here. I think the 49ers are live underdogs, and I think the over warrants a little bit of a look as well. When you talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, he's looked like a different quarterback, or at least he did in the second half, leading the drive to force overtime and, of course, the game-winning drive of sorts against the Rams defense. Now, I know he's still dealing with that thumb injury, but all indications point to him trying to go without a pain injection before the game, and he looked like a different quarterback in the second half. Now, of course, we did see Jimmy Garoppolo struggle mightily against the Tennessee Titans. I think you can explain some of that away, knowing that he banged his hand and just wasn't able to grip it and rip it the way he needs to. But for the 49ers to be successful here, it's about establishing the ground game, and that's something that'll get easier with Trent Williams returning to the fold. He's been one of the league's most valuable offensive linemen, and I think he can pave the way for both Elijah Mitchell, JaMychal Hasty, and Deebo Samuel carrying the football between the tackles against this Cowboys defensive front. Meanwhile, on the other side, this is a Dallas team who's been erratic at best. And when you look at their season, they feasted on lightweights. They went 6-0 against the NFC East. Their points per game were up substantially versus what they were against the rest of the league. And that's a little bit of cause for concern. I would love a scenario where the 49ers flooded this building like they did last Sunday in Los Angeles. I'm not naive enough to think Cowboys fans are going to sell their tickets regardless of what the secondary markets look like. But I think the 49ers are a team that are dangerous, playing with a bit of house money. And if they're able to pull off the upset against the Cowboys, it's a team, in my opinion, that the Green Bay Packers don't want to see, given how physical they can be getting after the quarterback and what they're able to do when it comes to establishing the ground game and really cherishing each possession.
Sunday Night Football, by the way, so much fun last Sunday Night Football with the Chargers and Raiders. We talked about that on the Fade on Monday as we were breaking down everything that happened and got you ready for college football national title game. Steelers and Chiefs, Furman. The Steelers opened a 2-touchdown underdog. Number came almost immediately down. Tell me if I'm wrong on this. And has set basically right at 12.5-ish. Steelers, biggest underdog of opening wild card weekend for this entire week. I'm on the Steelers. And I understand everybody out there who said, Clay, did you not see what happened when the Steelers went on the road against the Chiefs in this game? a couple weeks ago. Yes, I saw it. And we should also mention Clyde Edwards-Helaire officially out. I saw that a little bit earlier today. Expectation is Tyreek Hill is going to be able to go. Obviously, he factors in a big way here. But I just think 12.5 in a playoff game, when we know Mike Tomlin's success, when we know the Steelers have an identity, when we know their defense usually brings the lunch pail, so to speak, every single week. TJ Watt sitting there at 22.5 sacks. I like the Steelers to keep this game inside of single digits. I think the Chiefs will win, but I'm taking the Steelers plus the 12.5.
So you mentioned the number here, Clay, and it's worth noting that this will be the largest point spread that we've seen, at least by the database that I look at, as far as a wild card weekend underdog. And when you look at previous history, double-digit favorites have fared exceptionally well. The last 6 times we've seen it, 6-0 straight up, obviously, and 6-0 against the spread. This will also be the largest underdog tag attached to the Pittsburgh Steelers, going all the way back to 2007, a Week 14 game against the New England Patriots. So a little bit of uncharted territory for a very proud franchise. And to your point, a lot of people remember what they saw last, and that was Kansas City absolutely taking Pittsburgh to the woodshed in a game that really wasn't as close as the final score indicated, which is saying something when you win by 3 touchdowns plus. But without Clyde Edwards-Helaire and a Kansas City ground game, I think that leaves a little bit to be desired. You can't necessarily exploit the Steelers' biggest deficiency, and that's been their inability to get off the field when they're matched up with a physically imposing ground and pound attack. Now, in the first meeting, Travis Kelce didn't play. It didn't matter. The Steelers did a good job limiting Tyreek Hill, but it was Byron Pringle that went off, along with a couple other guys. And I do think it's a little bit scary that Kansas City is starting to figure out ways to get Mecole Hardman involved, knowing how explosive he can be as a run-after-the-catch guy, despite the deficiency he has as a full-on route runner. However, defensively, let's see what Kansas City brings. They were one step ahead of the Steelers offensively last time around, but this is kind of, you throw caution to the wind. I mean, Big Ben said, we're probably the 14th team out of 14 in the playoffs. We're probably a 3-touchdown underdog in this spot. And I know he was making jest of all of it, but you love that carefree attitude. What do the Steelers have to lose? They have to feel like they're working on borrowed time in this particular spot. And while it won't be pretty for extended stretches in this game, I'm with you here. I lean Steelers, but for me to actually bet it, I'd probably need to get the number up to 2 touchdowns, and I'm not quite sure the market will move that far again.
It's got to make you nervous agreeing with almost every bet that I'm making.
Yeah, it kills me. Trust me. It kills me, and it's a good thing that I only really have one full bet that I made, and it's not a game that you agreed with going over in the Bills. Otherwise, I'd probably fade myself, and the name of the show would be even more apropos than it is week in, week out.
Cardinals, Monday night game, going up against the Rams. This is another divisional matchup. Both teams know each other well. Matthew Stafford never has won a playoff game. I feel like a lot of people are not aware of that.
This is your MVP. This is your MVP. This was your team to win the Super Bowl.
Half of the year.
Don't even dare tell me you're getting off the bandwagon here.
Both of my teams that I picked to make the Super Bowl are in the playoffs, which is, by the way, not all the time very easy to do because there's lots of favorites.
Who'd you pick in the AFC?
The Bills.
Who'd you pick in the other side?
Rams,
okay,
Bills. So if I were picking I'll ask you this at the end, and
sure.
We'll do it a couple of weeks every week as the playoffs advance. But I like the Rams. I like the Rams minus the 3.5. I feel like they have been more consistent, notwithstanding the collapse that they had against the 49ers. I feel like they have been more consistent than the Cardinals. I like the way they have finished the season. At home, I like Sean McVay. I like Cliff Kingsbury too, but I just like Sean McVay better at scheming things up. I like the history of the Rams having some recent success. And so I am taking the Rams to cover the 3.5, not to mention I like Aaron Donald and I like Jalen Ramsey as big-time defensive playmakers. And I think you need a lot of playmakers when you get into the playoffs. That's my pick for this one. Therefore, the Outkick 6-pack actually has 7 picks this week. But who you got?
I like the total in this game, and I actually like it under. I think the level of familiarity between these two teams will have it as a tighter, cagier matchup, so to speak. When you look at Arizona, Kyler Murray, so much placed on his plate, but he doesn't strike me as a guy that can be methodical, that wants to take what the defense will give you. It's all about hunting the big play. So it's incumbent on Cliff Kingsbury and this Arizona coaching staff to kind of limit some of his decision-making. And what do I mean when I say that? it's getting the ground game involved, whether it's James Conner or Chase Edmonds. I know both of those guys are banged up. You have to be able to commit to running the football here to keep this Rams defense honest. I mean, it was the key to success for San Francisco. And while Arizona is a little bit more of a finesse attack, I do think that you need to try and provide a dual threat. Meanwhile, on the other side, I mean, if Arizona can get anything out of J.J. Watt, it changes their dynamic defensively and their ability to get after the quarterback. I mean, Matthew Stafford playing with a ton of pressure in this game. So what should Sean McVay do? Lean on his trio of running backs. Give the ball to Sony Michel. Get Cam Akers involved, who had a 20% snap share in his return from a torn Achilles last week in the regular season finale. And with Darrell Henderson very much in the fold as well, I think these guys can run the ball against Arizona. You can play a bit of keep away. So I actually like this game under the total a bit. I know it's scary with two defenses that have left a lot to be desired, specifically Arizona that's tanked over the last 5 to 6 weeks. But it wouldn't shock me at all if we were talking about the Rams winning this game somewhere in the ballpark of 24-17. Don't have strong convictions on the side. I actually made the game 4.5, 4.2 actually, so I don't see wiggle room there. But I do like the game under the total a bit. I think some of the numbers suggest the market is right, but the matchup for me, I'll go under for the first time all season between these two teams, at least from their two previous matchups, and hope that both defenses raise their level of play.
So there's tons of open jobs right now. I think 7. Am I right that there's 7 NFL head coaching jobs, I believe, available and open right now? A lot of props out there where you can bet on.
You got me pulling up the list now, so I'm trying to make sure we don't miss any. But go ahead, keep talking. I'm listening.
I think the 7th job to come open was when they made the decision to fire Culley with the Texans. At least that's what I wrote this morning. I think it was 6, and then they fired Culley to get us to 7. Are there any of the prop markets, some places you can bet on who the next coach will be? Any job that you like, any bet that you like on a head coach?
So I think it's so interesting because when Brian Flores lost his job in Miami, immediately people thought, well, Stephen Ross has ties to the University of Michigan. He's been a prominent booster there, that this must mean he's got an inside track to bringing Coach Harbaugh down. Now, Jim Harbaugh told his players at Michigan that he was going to explore some of the NFL job prospects. And if you talk to folks in Chicago, they would love to bring their former starting quarterback back there with that hard-nosed mentality, that take no prisoners approach to try and get the Bears back to basics. But if Harbaugh's got, half a brain in his head, which we know he does, the Bears are in salary cap hell, and I can't see him even winning in that particular spot unless he truly believes in Justin Fields. The other interesting movement as far as Michigan was concerned, I believe yesterday they were able to lure a defensive line coach from Notre Dame, and it's hard for me to think that you're going to have a coach make that move unless he believes Harbaugh is going to be there. But that's neither here nor there. When I look at the Houston Texans job, I think they should do everything in their power to try and get Brian Flores in down there. The reason I say that is they do have ties to the New England coaching regime as far as their front office. Nick Cassero, and I'm butchering his name, was involved in building that New England dynasty. But the other storyline worth following, and I have to give my co-host, the Bet the Board podcast, Payne Insider, credit, because he knows the Dolphins better than anybody else and some of their coaches, is that if Brian Flores went to Houston, he had an existing relationship with Deshaun Watson. So that would be the biggest coup in the entire NFL this offseason. If you can bring in a head coach in Flores, and Flores case can convince Deshaun Watson to let bygones be bygones, and the Houston Texans, bury the hatchet, and suddenly Deshaun Watson is the starting quarterback, because that was the one piece missing for Brian Flores in Miami. It, of course, would take a couple of years to beef up that roster. So that's a scenario that I could see playing out. The other name that's been circulated, and I saw one of your good friends in the space, Peter Schrager, talking about it, Tom Pelissero, that I've heard in coaching circles as well, is Indianapolis's special teams coordinator, Bubba Ventrone. He may not be a hot name for this particular cycle, but it's definitely a coaching candidate that I think if he doesn't get a job now is going to be at the top of a lot of people's lists as you look at 2023 when they're going through the coaching carousel as well. So that would be a little bit of a long shot. I'm not sure he's a perfect fit anywhere, but Bubba Ventrone, if any of your books happen to offer odds on next head coach, a long shot to keep in mind if he doesn't get a job this year to be very much in the thick of things next year, and rightfully so, given the way he's commanded that particular group in Indianapolis, despite the team, leaving a lot to be desired both at the quarterback position and defensively over the tail stretch of the season.
$5 to win $150. Pick any winner in the Super Wildcard Weekend. FanDuel.com/Clay. FanDuel.com/Clay. Furman, we'll do a deep dive on this at some point, but FanDuel has their national championship odds up for college football right now. I'm just going to hit you with them some as we run through. Here's the top 12 or 13. Bama is your favorite at 2-1. Georgia 3-1. Ohio State 6-1. My early read, maybe some value based on how good Ohio State looked in the Rose Bowl, particularly on offense. Clemson 10-1. And then there is a monster jump. Texas A&M 40-1. Oklahoma 40-1. Michigan 40-1. Oregon 42-1. Southern Cal 50-1. Florida 50-1. Miami 60-1. My Tennessee Volunteers, who I think are going to be pretty good next year. I don't know if people have realized this. 80-1. That's, by the way, the 12th favorite to win the national championship. I think that surprises people. Wisconsin 80-1. Penn State 80-1. Notre Dame 80-1. Those are the top 16 or so. Any of those names, any of those numbers jump out to you early? Again, I said Ohio State at 6-1 seemed like maybe some decent value with C.J. Stroud coming back. And again, the likelihood, it feels like pretty good that Ohio State should be a big favorite in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, they will be. I think Michigan is getting a little bit disrespected at 40-1. I know they have a ton they have to replace on the defensive side. But if you believe that J.J. McCarthy is going to give them a better dual threat quarterback than what they had this past year in Cade McNamara, suddenly if they're able to retain Coach Harbaugh, I know it's different sometimes to stay atop the mountain than it is to get there in the first place. But I think the Michigan Wolverines at 40-1, intriguing on some level. And I would also say Texas A&M. I mean, we've heard for years what Jimbo Fisher is doing recruiting-wise. I mean, his numbers and the five-star recruits that he brought in this past cycle have been incredible. We know that they have some quarterback transfers highlighted by Max Johnson from LSU. I look at Texas A&M and begin to wonder if this is a team that's a sleeping giant within the SEC. It's a program that I've had a love-hate relationship with, or maybe their fans have hated me over the years. But I think A&M at 40-1, if you're looking for a team from a Power 5 conference that's going to have everything laid out in front of them, I know you obviously have to get through Alabama and Tuscaloosa, but I would look at the Aggies at 40-1. Haven't bet any of these yet myself, want to shop around a little bit, but there's no way I'd be tying up money in the Georgias, the Alabamas, and the Ohio States, 350 some odd days ahead of time. But Michigan and Texas A&M, when you look in that second tier, very intriguing to me.
We will be back on Monday. We'll actually have a Monday Night Football wildcard game to continue to talk about the Cardinals and the Rams. And the other three divisional games will be set. We'll break it all down for you on The Fade. I'm Clay Travis. He's Todd Furman. Anything else you want to say before we leave, Furman?
Yeah, one last thing, because I know a lot of people are always interested by this, and we actually got an email from the folks at FanDuel. When you're looking at some of the bet splits for the Saturday games, the numbers they set out, they said 69% of the bets coming in on the Cincinnati Bengals against the Raiders, 68% of the bets coming in on the Buffalo Bills in the nightcap. And as far as the totals are concerned, 63% of the bets coming in on the Las Vegas Raiders and Bengals over the total. And this is surprising to me. 74% of the bets between the Patriots and Bills coming in under the total. Maybe makes me feel a little bit better about a contrarian type approach going over. But just some food for thought. Shouldn't predicate any of your gambling decisions on that. But wanted to share some of those numbers that came in from our representatives at FanDuel.
By the way, it used to be a decent plan to fade the public, right? But the public's gotten better at gambling.
Yeah, it's a much more sophisticated betting public than ever before. And I think a lot of it is because you have content out there, you have access to information that wasn't readily available. I mean, 10 to 15, I'm dating myself. 20 years ago when I was in college, you could blindly fade the public on a lot of marquee college football and college basketball games. You didn't have to name a player. You didn't have to know any of the situation. You got steam moving in your favor. You could take bad numbers, and you didn't have to watch the game because the thing was a winner. It's much more sophisticated now. And I would caution people that just want to go into blindly fading the public in NFL playoff games. Make sure you have something tangible that you can assess from an X's and O's standpoint before you walk to the window, whether it's for a $5, $500, or $5,000 wager.
Good stuff. As always, Todd Furman, I'm Clay Travis. This is The Fade. We'll see you on Monday.